Welcome to Hendricks Citizenship Academy. You know, every year, hundreds of thousands of people apply to naturalize and become U.S. citizens. But there are also hundreds of thousands more that qualify but don't apply for various reasons. Many of the times, those reasons are mistakes, right? They believe that they're not eligible yet. They believe that they don't qualify for some reason or another. But many times, they're mistaken. And so as we go through the academy, we're going to learn what it is to become a U.S. citizen, how to become a U.S. citizen. This is the first of many, many episodes and lessons to come, covering everything from where you start, what needs to be filed, what an interview is like. What if I have criminal history? What if I owe taxes? Can I appeal a decision? If I'm denied the first time, can I get a second time? If I don't speak English, can I still take the test and can I still do the interview? We're going to be touching on every subject, and very soon we'll have the brand new book coming out that is a 300-page book on citizenship. Many of the parts of the book are for applicants, people who are looking to apply, people who are wanting to prepare and get ready for their application for naturalization. And the other parts of the book are going to be like attorney resources. Here are things that you need to know. Here are some examples, or these are ways to interpret the law. And that will help both the people who are preparing, the current applicants, and also the practitioners so that they're ready. I'm going to explain what it really means to be a U.S. citizen, why citizenship matters, and whether or not it might be the right step for you. So let's get started. All right, I'm Michael Hendricks. I have been working in immigration for over 15 years. Immigration is all I do. I have done other areas of law in the past as part, like supplements to immigration, but not ever taking over. My primary area of practice has always been immigration. I've helped process thousands and thousands of cases. I've attended hundreds of interviews. I've created technologies that make immigration more seamless and more efficient for applicants and for attorneys. I've created artificial intelligence that allows for there to be better drafting and better wording and reviews of cases so that the human errors, like missing the differences of conflicts in names or missing the change of a date of birth or something like that, that never happens. The AI can look at it 24/7, 365 and see whether or not there's something wrong. So I've been working in immigration for this time, and every time I speak to an immigrant, every single time, I don't care if I'm in Mexico with my team, or I'm in Costa Rica, or I'm here in the US and I'm in LA, or I'm in New York, or I'm somewhere in Texas. Every time, or they come to my office, every time that I talk to an immigrant, I'm always looking at where they're at and how to get them to citizenship. It could be that a person is just now starting, they're qualified for a U visa certification. They're completely eligible. They were assault with a deadly weapon. The person was not identified, but they said, oh, this is who I think that it was. There was no real court case, but yet they did everything that they were asked to do by the by the law enforcement officials, And so taking that person all the way from certification all the way through could be 20 years before they become a naturalized citizen. But it doesn't matter, because the end step for me is always naturalization. When in the U.S., and country of immigrants come together, we band, and we've become stronger because people came from England, people came from Holland, people came from Ireland and Scotland and many of the other European countries. And then people were brought forcefully from other countries like Africa. And then people began to immigrate from other areas of the world, Central and South America and Mexico, and from the Asian countries, which is a huge portion of immigration today. So as a country of immigrants, we are stronger because we are built this way. We are built by immigrants. And my desire is for all immigrants to keep going until they become U.S. citizens. My desire is for all the immigrants who keep the law, who pay their taxes, and who contribute to the U.S. economy to eventually have the right and obligation of citizenship, like the right to vote, and many more. This is what our desire is, and that's why we've created this academy. What we're building is we're creating the Hendricks Citizenship Academy. Within the next few weeks, I'll be launching my second book, like I talked about, on U.S. naturalization. The first one, 49 pages long, easy read, English and Spanish, and it really told the applicant what they need to do to get prepared, and if not, if they are or not eligible for applying for naturalization. Very simplified, very basic language, nothing too dense, and it was made easy for the applicant. But what I'm doing now is trying to help not only the applicant that is looking to apply today, but the person that wants to prepare. You just got your residency. You need to know what needs to be done. How many years do I have to wait? What if I have criminal in my history? What if something happens in the meantime? What are things that I need to do? I need to make sure I pay my taxes, stay out of trouble with the law, make sure that I'm not leaving the country too often or for too long of a time at one time. Make sure before I apply that I've been living in the office's jurisdiction for a significant or for the amount of time that's required by the law. These are all things that people need to think about well before they're applying for citizenship. And that could be the 2 years and 9 months. It could be the 4 year and 9 months. It doesn't matter because 5 years goes by in a snap. So what we want people to do is be able to be prepared in advance so that they're ready with all of their documents and they feel clean and clear and they're not worried about anything going into the interview. That's what this is meant to do. The digital book is meant to help them with that. And it'll be available for people for free when they subscribe or request it. It's a digital book, and so it's useful for all types of people. Like I said, people applying, people preparing, or even practitioners. So stay tuned as we release more material and provide additional resources. We already have things like English for naturalization, full digital classes, a 5-week course where they learn civics. They learn the words that are used in immigration many times. And this is something that is crazy. So this is like an introductory thing. So I'm going to go into a little bit, but I always tell people the immigrant who goes in to apply for citizenship, especially where English is their second language and maybe they don't feel very comfortable in it, they very rarely fail on the question and answer session, the interview, the actual 20 questions as they are now, having 12 right. They've memorized those bad boys. They've had somebody read them to them. They've listened and looked and read and responded and memorized to where they got those down pat. They probably know that information better than 80% of U.S. citizens. They don't fail when it comes to the interview for the question and answer, the test. They fail because they fail to understand the words that are being used on the application itself. It is very common for the application to use words like arms instead of weapons, persecution. Nobody understands what those things mean. So when you don't use it as part of your vernacular, like we speak English in a regular way, we're conversational. In England, they speak English a little bit different. Australia, they speak it a little bit different. But here in the U.S., we have our own vernacular. And if we do not use these words in our vernacular, if you don't use them as common parlance or common language, then what happens is the person that speaks English as a second language is learning through hearing, not necessarily through reading stuff in a book, especially a dense book that would use words that are not commonly used today. So what ends up happening is they hear words that they don't understand, and then they don't know how to respond, and then that causes nerves. Those nerves boil up, and then they get like they don't remember anything. I just had this. So there was a young lady that I was talking to, and she's like, I knew all the information, but as soon as I sat down to take my exam, it was like everything just went poof and just disappeared out of my brain. So the idea is to prepare them. So we have like English for naturalization, tests. We have preparation tests and example tests, not just examples. We have it to where you can actually take the test over and over and over again. We also have flashcards, mock interviews, and much more. So the training is there. We do civics classes because I want people who want to become U.S. citizens, I want them to understand why this country was founded. For instance, talking about something as simple as the social contract, looking at Locke and looking at all these guys, Blackstone, and looking at the people who really founded, who really created the philosophy through which or by which or under which our founders then created our great nation. And it is a great nation, no matter what you think. The United States of America is still the greatest nation on earth. And people take issue with that. I have no problem. I bleed red, white, and blue. And what's interesting enough is I grew up in Mexico for the first 17 years of my life. I didn't move back to the U.S. till I was 17. I grew up in central Mexico. I speak Spanish as my other first language. I speak various languages, but English and Spanish are my first. And I still love the U.S. of A. Now, I love Mexico. I love people ask me where I'm from. I'm like, I'm from Mexico. Of course, they look at me and they're like, no, you're not. And I'm like, have you ever been to Chihuahua or those Altos de Jalisco? I'm like, of course, there's plenty of people that look like me down there. But I grew up with my parents teaching me about the United States of America, both Anglo-Saxon parents, and we moved down there. And I grew up in Mexico and moved to the U.S. And I'm telling you, it is the greatest nation. The United States of America is the greatest nation. I've visited tons of the countries around the world. I know people. I love culture. I've gotten deep into their cultures. And I still believe that the United States is the greatest nation on earth. And I want everyone who is eligible to apply for citizenship so they can have the same rights that I was born with. So let's look at a couple of things. So there, number one, you become a U.S. citizen via two ways. One, either you're born a citizen, or number two, you naturalize. Okay? So born a citizen, those have various nuances that we're going to look at in various lessons, right? Because you can be born in a foreign country to one U.S. citizen parent who meets a certain residency requirement. You were born after 1982 and whatever the date is, and you are a U.S. citizen by birth, even if nobody has recognized it yet. But you're still, the moment you were born, you were a U.S. citizen because you meet the criteria. And in order to prove it to other people, you have to submit certain documentation. That's called a certificate of citizenship. Or you're born in the U.S. to U.S. citizen. And by the way, we just saw the case come down, birthright citizenship, so that anyone, even if you're born to undocumented parents or people on temporary visas, you're still born in the U.S., you're born a U.S. citizen. And then the other way is naturalization. That's when you are not a natural born citizen of the United States. You were born generally in a foreign country, and you don't have any ability to acquire your citizenship through your parents or grandparents. So you have to move from whatever status you're on, whether that be, and you can't go from zero to hero. In other words, you can't go from undocumented to naturalization in one jump. It doesn't work that way. There are various processes. So usually you have to go through a path. So you go through your path, and for most people that goes to permanent residency, and then from permanent residency, after you meet the criteria and you meet the qualifications, you move to U.S. citizenship. And that is through the process called naturalization. So green card versus citizenship. A green card allows you to live and work here, and but it can be taken away if you violate certain laws, things like that. If you stay outside the United States too long, it can be taken away. You have no right to your green card if you have done something that violates the terms of your green card or lawful permanent residence. And then the other, citizenship, is permanent. Now, some people would push back on this and be like, there's denaturalization. Yeah, of course there is, right? But I'm talking about citizenship through naturalization or through birth, but in this case, through naturalization that was obtained lawfully. Okay, denaturalization happens when a person obtains their naturalization, their citizenship via naturalization, through a unlawful manner, whether they lied and committed fraud, and we'll talk about that because not every little lie can make it to where they can denaturalize you, or you didn't provide certain pieces of information. There are many ways that you can end up having your status of citizenship through naturalization denaturalized and have that stripped away from you. And a U.S. citizen that is born in the United States can surrender their citizenship of the United States. And we can talk about that. I don't think that's very important to the subject at hand, but there are people, sovereign citizens, where they still live here and they live on their own property, but they don't want to pay taxes and they don't think the government should, regulate them and so on and so forth. So we probably won't talk about that a whole lot, but you can also give up your citizenship and your social security card and your right to all the other stuff. So rights and benefits. For a citizen, they have eligibility for benefits like disability. Forgive me, I'm looking back and forth because I read some of this to make sure we get this all correct. And that those disability benefits are unavailable to non-citizens, right? And when I say a non-citizen, that could be anybody in any status other than citizen. Absolute protection from deportation. We already talked about denaturalization. We'll touch on that later. We have a whole section of the book and a whole separate episode for that. And then the right to vote and participate in the greatest experiment in the world. And when I say the greatest experiment in the world, I mean it. What started here, I don't know if any of you have ever looked at the emperors of Rome, but the philosopher, the emperor philosopher, the philosopher emperor, right? He talked about Rome this way, that the experiment of Rome, it was like this fleeting, it was like a puff of smoke. It was so fragile that even to speak it, you kind of put it on the edge of disappearing or not being realized. And so this experiment was the same way. A group of people came together, and I'm not going to call them farmers, right? They did farmland, but they were highly educated men, right? They came together and they formed an experiment that has lived on now 250 years this year, July 4th, 1776 to today. So the ability to petition for family members much faster. So as a lawful permanent resident, you can't petition certain family members. For instance, a lawful permanent resident child cannot petition the parent, right? A lawful permanent resident brother cannot petition his brother or sister. So there are certain things, and there's also category changes as a citizen as compared to a lawful permanent resident. So there are various things we'll talk about there. I often tell my client, obtaining a green card is not the finish line. It is the beginning of a journey towards becoming a U.S. citizen. Super, super important. Understanding how to line it all up and make sure that you're ready. You're ready to apply for citizenship when your time comes. So, if you found this video helpful, please subscribe to the Hendricks YouTube right here, Kings of Citizenship. And make sure that you subscribe, like. We'll be getting out more information to you on YouTube. We have various social medias, including TikTok and Instagram and Facebook, of course. We have all kinds of social media. We have blogs that we send out with detailed information, practitioner tips. We also have information about how to use the AI for a better processing and make sure that you're obtaining better benefit from the tools that you're using in order to be able to help your clients. At my law firm, which has been around for 10 years, at my law firm, we just reduced all our prices by 30%. Because our tools and our systems work so well that, for instance, the naturalization, we can do in less than an hour from beginning to end and have it submitted. So it's one of those things to where if you use the right tools, it can not only benefit you and the practitioner, but it can also benefit the applicant because we have to charge less because it takes us less time. So be sure to check out the description below and request a free section of the upcoming naturalization book, and we'll give you those links as they come available. We're also linking our companion episodes, so these are all going to be stacked like a library, so that you have those available. And we also have social media pages, as I've already talked about. And if you're ready, if you are a person that's looking to prepare or to apply for your citizenship, if you're ready to begin your journey now, please contact us. We are here to help you obtain U.S. citizenship. So give us a call. We'll talk to you on the next time. Thank you so much.